symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them brothers. They are unable to be with us this evening, and so we remember them. The table, set for one, is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. Remember. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting their return. Remember. The red ribbon tied so prominently on the vase and reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breasts of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember. The candle. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. Remember. The slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember. There is salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. There is a glass, inverted. They cannot toast with us this night. Remember. The chair. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember. Remember, all of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depend upon their might and aid and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember. Remember until the day they come home. Remember.
classic definition of a veteran is a former member of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard who were honorably discharged. Another definition of a veteran, whether active duty, discharged, retired, or reserve, is someone who at some point in time wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. In my opinion, POWs and MIA that we remember today are not either in either of these categories, KIA or honorably discharged. In my opinion, they are simply active duty personnel who have not yet completed their term of duty. You see the POW flag, and we see a silhouette of a POW who came home to his mother, as you'll read in the handout, and depicting a man or a woman in captivity or missing. But who really were they? This group of POWs or MIAs from all wars are very similar as a demographic group to the casualties memorialized on the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C. Mr. Joe Gibbs will now tell us a little bit about who these people were.
There's a lot of names on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. A lot of people don't know the history of the Vietnam Memorial Wall. But a lot of POWs and MIAs that have been recovered, their names had gone on this wall at a later period in time. The young lady that designed this wall, her name was Maya Lynn. She was in college at the time they decided to design this wall. And there was a lot of designs that were integrated and turned in for this contest. She was the daughter of Chinese immigrants, and she kept seeing this marble wall inside the college that they were engraving names in, and it gave her the inspiration, and her professors gave her the inspiration to design this wall. And she never thought she'd win, but she did, and she designed one heck of a wall. A little history most people never know is the statistics off the wall. There's 58,267 names listed on a polished black wall, including those added in 2010. The names are arranged in order in which they were taken from us by day, and within each date the names are alphabetized. It is hard to believe it's 61 years since the first casualty. The first known casualty was Richard B. Fitzgibbon of North Wymont, Massachusetts, listed by the U.S. Department of Defense as having been killed on June 8, 1956. His name is listed on the wall with that of his son, Marine Corporal Richard B. Fitzgibbon III, who was killed on September 7, 1965. There are three sets of fathers and sons on this wall. 39,996 on the wall were just 22 years or younger. 8,283 were just 19 years old. The largest age group, 33,103, were 18 years old. 12 soldiers on the wall were 17 years old. 5 soldiers on the wall were 16 years old. 1 soldier, PFC Dan Pollock, was 15 years old. 997 soldiers were killed on their first day in Vietnam. 1,448 soldiers were killed on their last day in Vietnam. 31 sets of brothers on this wall. 31 sets of parents lost 2 sons. 54 soldiers attended Thomas Edison High School in Philadelphia. I wonder why so many from one school. 8 women are on the wall, nursing and wounded. 244 soldiers were awarded the Medal of Honor during the Vietnam War. 153 of them are on the wall. 226 soldiers on the wall were Native American and Alaskan American. Millersville, Ohio, with a population of 487 people, lost 6 of her sons. West Virginia had the highest casualty rate per capita in the nation. There are 711 West Virginians on the wall. The Marines in Morenci, they led some of the crappiest high school football and basketball teams in little Arizona copper town of Morenci, population 5,058, had ever known and cared. They enjoyed roaring beer buzz. In quieter moments, they rode horses along the Cordon Trail, stalked hill and Apache forest, and in patriotic commandeer, typical of the mining families, the 9 graduates of Morenci High enlisted as a group in the Marine Corps. Their service began on Independence Day 1966. Only 3 of them returned home. The buddies of Midvale, Leroy, Gibby Martinez, Tom Gonzalez, were all warrior friends and lived on 3 consecutive streets in Midvale, Utah, on 5th, 6th, and 7th Avenue. They lived only a few yards apart. They played ball. They all went to Vietnam and spanned 16 dark days in 1967. All 3 were killed. Leroy was killed on Wednesday, November 22nd, 4th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's assassination. Jimmy died less than 24 hours later on Thanksgiving Day. Tom was shot dead and sold the enemy on December 7th, Remembrance Day. The most casualty deaths for a single day was on January 31st, 1968, 245 lost. The most casualty deaths for a single month was May 1968, 2,415 casualties. For most Americans who read this, they will only see the numbers that the Vietnam War created. For those of us who survived the war, and families of those who did not, we see the faces. We feel the pain that these numbers created. We are, until we too pass away, haunted with these numbers. Because they were our friends, fathers, husbands, wives, sons, daughters. There's no war, there's no warriors. All of these are more than just a name on the wall. Thank you.
When we heard those statistics, each one of those categories could have been applied to the different POW MIAs from the different wars. Our keynote speaker tonight is Chief Deputy and Sheriff Elect Hobe Runion. Chief Runion started working with law enforcement in 1990 as a Barlow Police Department volunteer reserve officer. He took a paid position in 1992 as a Nebraska Police Department patrolman. In 2000, Chief Runion was hired as a patrol deputy to the Sheriff's Department in Sebastian County. Over the years, he has led positions of community resource deputy, criminal investigator, public information officer, division commander, SWAT team commander, and chief deputy since 2014. He currently serves in the United States Naval Reserves as a CB and is currently a senior chief petty officer in the Navy. He is a veteran of the Iraq War 2007, Afghanistan 2013, where he commanded convoy security teams, personally completing over 200 missions. He has been married to his wife, Lori, since 1986 and has 2 grown children. They are active members in the Community Bible Church, serving in various ministries and hosting a small group in their home. Chief Runion. I'm honored to be here. I'm always somewhat overwhelmed when people want to listen to what I have to say. And this is no different. But anything to do with the veterans is a soft spot to me. It's mainly because all of my family has served and I'm continuing to serve. So a lot of times I might not know exactly what I'm going to talk about, and I find that that is a challenge. And in doing this, I did a lot of research. It's kind of similar to me about speaking to Vietnam veterans, which I've had the honor to do several times, because I really don't know what you went through. I know what I went through, but I don't think that even today that we have a full appreciation of what the Vietnam veterans went through. So I will always honor you in everything I do for the military.
I think that when we're talking about the POWs and MIAs, it's very important to recognize that it is the Vietnam vets that pushed this. It was their initiative, and it still is, and I thank you for that. I think that in reading about this, I learned a lot more than I did know. I know about the spirit, and I'll tell you about that later, how I feel about this table. Usually I can get through it without crying. I'm serious. It's very emotional. It's very emotional for those of us that have served. So in doing my research, talking about the MIA POWs, the first ones recorded were actually in 480 BC in Greece at the Battle of Thermopylae. And there's actually writings about their loved ones that didn't come home. In ancient times, very few bodies were ever returned home if they were killed on the battlefield. If taken prisoner, they were usually executed and occasionally repatriated, usually for money. It went on for centuries, virtually unchanged. So from 480 until the 1800s, that is pretty much what went on. Looting was common, so that made it even harder to identify any remains that the home countries did get back. About the time of the American Civil War, it became common to try and make efforts to identify the fallen in various wars. There's stories about great efforts being made to identify soldiers who had fallen in the Crimean War, and the French troops in the Franco-Prussian War, and of course our own Civil War. It was difficult because there were no standard means of what or where to attach any device, what we call dog tags. They didn't have them. Around 1912, those first were designed. They issued them to personnel. So World War I was really the first war that it was possible to identify many of the dead. However, most of the countries didn't put a lot of effort into it. They didn't care about identifying the enemy dead, and they were routinely buried in mass graves, both because they weren't concerned for them and because of a concern for health and hygiene. For most of the wars of the 20th century, the research that I've done, the United States had almost 20% of its KIAs listed as MIAs. World War II, we had a huge amount because of the expanse of the Pacific. The Pacific will not probably give up those answers to us. It's still common to find remains from World War I and World War II to this day. And most of them are sent to their home countries if they can identify where they came from. In the U.S., we make every attempt to identify our fallen, allow their descendants to know who they were, where they fell, and what happened to them. I noted that between 2013 and 2016 that there were 37 Marines remains recovered from the Tarawa Atoll battle from 1943 and brought home and given proper funeral honors. We've already heard about the 55 Korean War vets who were recently brought back. There's concern right now in Korea, where we heard there's over 7,700 MIA still, because of construction projects and infrastructure, that many of them can be lost forever. So there's an added concern right now to keep looking, and hopefully the talks between our government and North Korea will result in more of our MIAs being brought home to a proper burial, where we can honor them for their sacrifice. There's been very active progress made for finding and identifying MIA remains from the Vietnam conflict. Our own, if anyone knows, Ben Bell from Lavaca here in Sebastian County has actually written a book about it and has made several trips back to Vietnam, hoping to help in the hunt for the remains of our fallen service members. The Vietnam veterans have supported this issue from the beginning. Possibly it was because it was the first war where the technology was in place to actually identify fallen members at a later date. Moving forward, it's becoming increasingly difficult to recover remains from the Vietnam conflict because of the environment and the soil. They're basically decaying to a point that we can't find them. And the government of Vietnam has asked that we increase our efforts to try and bring home more of our fallen from Vietnam. And I think it's commendable that as a nation, we've met that challenge and we continue to do more to try and bring back our fallen. As we come up to the current wars, I can tell you with a certainty that every effort is made before deployment to ensure that there's a record on file, that if we're lost, we can be identified in the future and our remains were recovered. The ability to use genetic fingerprinting has ensured the ability to identify anyone that is found going into the future. And I can tell you, it did give us some comfort in Iraq, where the war was primarily IEDs, to know that if we hit a large IED, there was a very good possibility they could positively identify us. We talked about it. We talked about it, and it was somewhat comforting. Looking back, there's been no other country in the world that has put as many resources, efforts, and time into bringing back and identifying our lost service members. Several years ago, a service member walked off a post in Afghanistan, and we spent tens of thousands of hours trying to recover them. We had service members that were hurt trying to recover him. We had service members that were killed trying to recover him, even though he deserted. That's the kind of effort, though, as Americans, we put into recovering all of our people. In the last 100 years, there's over 100 million MIAs throughout the world from the various conflicts. Countries like China and Russia, Japan and Germany from World War II obviously have the highest numbers. And even though we mourn and pray for everyone, we are fortunate that our country has always put an emphasis on our fallen service members. And they've always put an emphasis on bringing everyone home. We've all heard that motto, and it's more than just a motto. It is a way of life when we're deployed. We hear several times a year that fallen Americans have been recovered from faraway battlefields and brought home and identified and buried here. Because we do place great value, to the point that the POW MIA flag here is the only flag that's ever been flown in the rotunda over our Capitol. It's also the only flag other than Old Glory that's flown over the White House, and it's actually specified to fly on Armed Forces Day, Memorial Day, Flag Day, Independence Day, National POW MIA Day, and Veterans Day. As I look over here, and I can't hardly see these ceremonies, and I want to thank the Girl Scouts. You did a great job with this ceremony. I really did. This is where the hard part gets for me. Everywhere that I went in Iraq, that there was a chow hall. There was a table like this one. Every single one. If there was a chow hall for a company, they had this table set up, because we do honor and remember our POWs and MIAs. Whether it was Camp Fallujah or Baghdad, Al-Qaeda. When I went to Afghanistan, the big bases like Camp Leatherneck and the tiny outpost, if they had a chow hall, they had that table. And every holiday, if we happened to be in base, in camp, we went to that ceremony. And what I want to say to you as Vietnam vets, and is that as we're moving forward, there's lots of new people. There's a whole other generation that felt and saw the importance of what this table represents. And knowing that you started as Vietnam vets, as Americans, but that other countries have also now picked up that cause and are doing the same thing. What I would say to you is know that your quest, the initiative that you started, it's not going to be lost. Because we have hundreds of thousands of veterans that know exactly what this means because of what you did. Thank you.
thinking about POWs, MIAs from the United States. We want to honor the South Vietnamese POWs, MIAs that you also did. Thank you for being here. We will now have our closing prayer.
A Marine that went to Vietnam, 500 Marines was in my unit where we all went together. We were replacement units, and 3 of us came home. So, in closing tonight, as we leave tonight, I ask that you'll bow your heads once again. Lord, we ask that you will once again place a hedge of protection around those in harm's way and every veteran, friend, or family member that has been here today. God bless. Lord, we ask that you bless our President and guide America in Jesus' precious and holy name. Amen. Amen.
Retire the colors. That concludes our ceremony for today.